Ground level theology, breaking it down, making the complex simple. No need to frown, bringing the wisdom from the tower to the street. Making theology enjoyable for everyone we meet. No need for big words, no need for fuss. Ground level theology for all of us. Exploring the depths, unraveling the mysteries, taking on a challenge, simplifying histories. Ground level theology, oh yeah, making sense of the concepts, loud and clear. No need to be a scholar, no need to be elite. Ground level theology, making it sweet.
All right, welcome back to Ground Level Theology. With me, as always, is the co-host to Ground Level Theology, Dave Hoffman. Dave, welcome back.
What's up, everybody?
It's good to be back now. Folks, just as a heads up, Dave and I, we had a different episode planned for this week. We had a episode on horror. Should we be watching horror movies as Christians? The only problem is that episode kind of got corrupted, and so here I am in Virginia doing my PhD class, and unfortunately we have to record an episode out here, so I'm hoping everything goes smoothly. But we're doing fine. We're doing fine out here. And we have a great episode for you guys today. We actually have a few clips that I wanted to show, and I wanted us all to kind of react to this. So we have a great episode planned out for us. Dave, I purposely have not told you actually about these clips. So you're gonna Dave is gonna be cold reacting to these clips, and I'm actually really excited. Now, these clips, they are our culture, what is going on right now, and that is actually why I chose these three. So this is sort of like the news. This is what's going on in culture, and this is essentially what is going on in culture and how we should react as Christians. So the first clip that I want to bring up is actually one thing that we will be reacting to, and that is a update, actually. You know what? Actually, let's look at this one first. Here's another update. I've sort of been following Russel Brand. You guys all know I'm keeping up with him. And here's just something I want to start on a high note. And so I'm not going to pull up all his tweets or anything, but here's one that I saw, and I just wanted to show you guys. I'm reminded that at all times, there's only an audience of one, Jesus. Dave, that's powerful. That one really struck me. I mean, he's coming out with just absolute bangers when it comes to theology, especially recently on his tweets. But this one actually really struck me because what you know, Dave, and what I know is this is a very common phrase that we use in Bible college and seminaries. This is almost a anthem or a motto that we tell each other in encouragement when we preach, when we teach, when we pray, that, hey, there's just an audience of one. Am I right?
To myself, I've been able to tell it to others. It's quite an encouragement and a sobering reminder, a humbling reminder that it helps me stay humble and not get puffed up and let things go to my head. And also it keeps me from allowing the world or other people and their expectations to have too much power or sway or even my own ambitions to take over the much greater purpose that Christ has in store for me as a pastor, for you as a pastor, any other Christian leader in ministry, what have you. So yeah, to hear it from Russel Brand, like I've been hearing it for years, but I'm glad you know it too.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and this one really stuck out to me because I honestly, I don't think this is a common phrase that it's just kind of given out, in the circles of the pews or anything. I really do think that this is sort of one of those more common yet profound statements. Um, and so when this one came out, honestly, it was just a good reminder. We remind each other all the time, right? We're always reminding each other, hey, it's an audience of one. You might feel like you struck out on your sermon, but did you prepare? Did you deliver it faithfully? And honestly, it's all about that one person, Jesus. That's who you do it for. So to see Russel Brand coming forward with it, someone with such a big audience, and he's saying, hey, my audience is an audience of one. I could lose all of you, and yet I'm still doing what God has for me because he's been my one audience. So that's just, honestly, I just giving you guys the update because he seems to be continuing to bear the fruits of the Spirit, and we're keeping an eye on him. So that's the first one. But the second person we are keeping an eye on, and this guy is far more notorious, and this is an update, is someone who has been hard to hold down on what he believes. We have struggled so much as a Christian community. Debates have happened over this man on whether he is a Christian or not, and that is Jordan Peterson. Is he Christian or not? We can have theologians on both sides of the aisles talking about whether he is or is not. And yet we have this clip, and this is John Rich. He's being interviewed by Jordan Peterson, but John Rich has actually turned the tables at this point and presses Jordan Peterson on whether he has accepted Jesus, historical God-man, the real Jesus, not allegorical, but Jesus. And we're going to go ahead and look at his answer. I want to ask at the end of this whether you, Dave, if you think he's a Christian from this answer, and then you guys as the listener, what do you think about his answer? So we're going to go ahead and listen to the full reply. And here we go. I got to pull this up.
For you, if Jesus is truly who the Bible says he is the creator. He is the one who exists and creates existence, which is how he's defined. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He holds the keys to life and death, to heaven and hell. If he is that person, would you ever turn your life over to him? If you truly believed he was, would you turn your life over to him?
Well, if you truly believed that, turning your life over to him under those conditions would be exactly the same as believing it. Belief isn't, as you already pointed out, belief isn't a set of statements about what you believe to be true. It's a way of living.
Well, but I'm
asking, already outlined what that way of living is.
Well, but I'm asking you as just as one of the most, I would say one of the smartest guys in the world, one of the most intellectual people alive today. It's why people watch you. Someone like yourself, if you became absolutely convinced, yes, that's real. Wow. It is terrifying. It is terrible. But you said, if you told him, I am turning my life over to you, do what you will with me, and you really did that. If you were willing to do that,
I already did that.
What a situation!
Long time ago.
You did?
I did that a long time ago. Yeah.
So how is it that
I know the truth sets you free?
Yeah,
I understand.
So in your life, it's not the doctor calling the shots.
Not when I'm oriented properly.
What orients you?
Holy terror. Look, I'm trying to say the things that I believe serve the truth. And I have reason for that, because I know what the alternative is. The alternative's bleak, bleaker than you can imagine. And so step carefully. That's my presumption. And hope and pray that you're careful enough to walk the straight, narrow path.
but it's impossible. You can't do that. I can't do it. You can't do it.
Oh, I understand.
You know?
I understand what you mean. I don't take any issue with what you've said.
Yeah. No, I don't think you do. And I'm not trying to have an issue. I'm just
No, I understand.
I've studied what you've been saying, and I know you look at the Bible. It seems, at least, very metaphorically and very intellectually, you look at it in those kinds of terms. And at the end of the day, it's not a metaphor and it's not intellectualism. Like when you die and you see him, what's he going to say to you? What are you going to say to him? I mean, that's the ultimate question that everybody watching this interview is going to have to deal with. Everybody. It says every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Every knee, including John Rich and Jordan Peterson and the devil himself and everybody else. Every knee is going to have to bow. And so whether you believe that or not doesn't change the fact that that is what is going to happen. And I happen to believe, because it says it in the scripture, that the Lord reveals himself to every man. Every man knows it. He says, I stand at the door and knock. And if any man hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come in with him. I'll sit down with him. I'll dine with him. I'll have dinner with him and he with me. And so if you hear him knocking on that door, and you walk up, you open it, and you let him in, that is what that means. You have invited him into your house. Let's call your body, this is my house. I invite him in, he sits down, he's living in my house now. That's what that means. It also says he won't knock forever. He will not knock forever. If you reject
well, you
him,
said you experienced that.
Yep.
You experienced that when you felt abandoned.
Yep. He won't knock forever. At some point, if you reject him long enough, it says he'll just turn you over to your desires and go, well, we gave it a good shot. Move on. And brother, you don't want to get to that point. So anybody watching this, if you feel him knocking at the door, open the door.
All right. Dave, quick reacts off the bat. No thinking. Just give us the from the hip.
Do I think, based off this interview, based off the specific questions asked of Jordan Peterson and how he was asked to articulate it, do I think he's a Christian as of the point of this interview? No,
Yeah.
I do not.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's tricky. He is someone that definitely weasels through the questions.
Yes.
It's, part of me wants to say yes because of how narrow of a definition, John Rich gave him. He's historical, he's real, he's the God man. Like he gave him such a narrow definition, and Jordan Peterson's like, I already did that, right? But then when he goes to answer his question, he talks about following the truth and doing what's right. Part of me wonders if what he means by holy terror, and maybe we can actually talk about this for a quick second. Part of me interprets that not in the sense of some sort of like philosophical, holy terror equals truth and I follow truth, and so it's a metaphysical sense. Part of me interprets that in a very real sense of holy terror, in the sense of like terror of eternal punishment, eternal damnation, what is to come on the contrary of that belief, right? Because he talks about belief not just being intellectual assent, I think this, therefore I'm saved, but he talks about belief as that which you are living out, belief as living. And I think you and I would definitely agree with that. I think you and I would actually say that's a better definition than what most people use for belief, right?
Sure.
But I thought that was a really interesting thing that he talked about holy terror, and it just sort of came to mind. I've had this conversation before with people, and I've heard this said, and I'm not sure I always agree, but it's the stance at which people say you cannot be saved by something like fire and brimstone, right? You can't be scared into the kingdom. You cannot give your life to Christ because you fear hell, right? And so when he talks about the holy terror, part of me thinks that that's what he's expressing here. The terror of that which is the opposite, the eternal punishment, the what his life would be like if he doesn't have Christ, the undoing, the what he often calls the in the metaphorical sense hell, his life essentially being undone. I guess I'm just gonna sort of formulate this and kick this off to you just to get your 2 cents. But what do you think of the idea that someone can, can someone be saved because they fear hell? Is that like a valid reason?
That's how you asked the question. I think the fear of hell is a great motivation to seek salvation.
Right.
But see how I'm articulating. I think it's a great motivator.
Right.
Hey, oh my gosh, hell is a real place. That's exactly where I'm going to go if I
Right.
do not repent. It's a great motivation to now seek, okay, how can I be saved from this hell?
Right.
And that might have been the initial motivator, but it doesn't stay the motivation.
Right.
And then I think a good biblical answer, and don't base everything on a single verse if you can help it. But I love that James chapter 2 verse 19, when James talks about how demons believe in God and they shudder and they're in hell, going to hell, eternal hell. And isn't that profound that, hey, you can believe that there's one God? Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. I could say they have a holy terror. So I'm not saying James, Jordan Peterson is a demon.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, hey, but if demons can believe that and they shudder, they have that holy terror and they're demons and they're going to hell, then you, Jordan Peterson, yes, you're not a demon. But that's not how.
Right.
You need to go one step further. I think it's a great motivation, Jordan. But it should be a motivation to seek the one who saves you. And I know a person who's truly a Christian is not afraid to articulate in some way, shape, or form that Jesus has saved me by his blood, or something along those lines. You love saying Jesus' name, not hesitant to go oh, I know I need to live a good life, holy life, and hell is definitely something worth avoiding.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the average live a good life and try not to go to hell if it's real. And I don't know. As smart as the man is, he found a fancy way to say what a lot of people say.
Yeah, true. Honestly, the first time I saw this, I was like, there it is. The question could not be lined up more clear. And he affirmed very clearly, yes, and I've already done that. But when you look back at it again on what he says, and even what he says after that, you kind of just see more waffling. He really doesn't sit down in where he's supposed to answer the question. And you could even see John Rich sort of in his gospel presentation at the end, even with, hey, there are consequences to, sort of playing the game. Eventually the game can no longer be played and you stand where you stand, before Jesus. So, yeah, I don't know. He has a way of kind of weaseling out of the question, and at first I thought, oh, this is concrete, but when I look back at it again, it's like, no, he sort of didn't. He's just not answering it as clear as we think, and yeah, and I think you made a great point of someone who is saved wouldn't be so ambiguous. They would declare it. And starting at the start of this episode, right, we went into Russel Brand first. That's someone who is throwing Jesus' name in every tweet he can and just posting his growth and the fruits of the Spirit which he's bearing forward. And so we sort of see a good contrast of what's going on here between these two men. Yeah, and so that was just something that I want to go through. And then also, I think you articulated it well, hell as the motivator, not as the saving agent, so to speak, right? Because Jesus is the one who saves us. That relationship is the one that keeps us. And so hell can kind of push us and orient us towards Jesus, but Jesus is certainly the one. I just kind of brought that up because the whole idea of the holy terror kind of brought that to mind, and it makes me wonder if that's what he's talking about. The funny thing about listening to Jordan Peterson is you sort of have to philosophize with other people as to what he even means by his words. But it did bring up sort of that idea, because I do know people that have been sort of scared into relationship with the Lord. And they talk about this too, which is a really interesting subject, right? Because David, you and I, like fire and brimstone sermons are not very, popular. They're kind of looked down upon, and we don't really see that per se. There isn't a lot of like famous fire and brimstone preachers. We're sort of in the opposite era of encouragement and even motivational talk when you think of famous prosperity teachers and stuff. But we can think of Jonathan Edwards and Sinners in the Hands of Angry God, right? And those people were terrified and turned to Christ for salvation. And so I just think it's a good thought exercise. As some people say, that's not a legitimate form. But in some sense, I do know some people that were saved that way. And they do, it's the motivator, but it turns them to, as you said, the relationship with Jesus that actually saves them. So that was just an interesting topic to kind of derive from just that little nugget that he brought up.
Yeah. I do like that though. Fire, like you think about like the turn or burn, and you got
Right.
like the screaming preacher of like, if you don't wake up, and you're in danger of hell, and like literally the preacher's trying to scare the hell out of you where you do not want to go. Quite literally, that's how I've heard it said before. But I have also in my preaching labs in seminary and at Moody we need to talk about hell. Jesus talked about hell more than he did about heaven. And you think about all of his parables, the kingdom of heaven is like, the kingdom of God is like blank. You have all these wonderful illustrations. And yet, of all the people in the Bible to speak about hell, Christ spoke the most. He came to die to save people from hell. You know what I mean? And even more than that, though, but not less than that.
Right.
And he even tells us as the church that by his power, we have the keys to the gates of hell, and that we can bind and loose by the power and the preaching of his word. And so it's like one of those things where it's like you actually, and I've had the privilege, that's right, it's a privilege and an honor to have been able to do a heaven and hell series at my church for it was 5 weeks, 4 weeks, heaven, hell, new heaven, new earth, all wonderful stuff, judgment, and then Easter, which was a great time of ultimatum, like, hey, I'm taking you to the cross.
Yeah.
Where literally the Lord defeated hell, went and conquered hell, sin and death, to give you life. What are you going to do? Here's the ultimatum. You're going to walk across that bridge, which is the cross, and get to glory. And all my people had, ironically, they had a wonderful response, and they were very thankful for the sermons on hell and the final judgment than on heaven and the new earth. And it's not because they don't look forward to heaven or the new earth, but it's just so sobering. You don't appreciate grace and mercy until you know that you deserve judgment. You don't appreciate heaven until you have tasted and seen the reality of hell. And so I do appreciate lots of Brooks and Dunn, but I love that John Rich is not afraid to be like, I care too much about your soul. We're not going to live in the gray, because Jordan Peterson loves to live in the gray. And it's like, no, we need to be concrete about this. This is a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
And
and folks, like he just completed a tour titled "We Who Wrestle with God." It's his newest book, but the one thing that he wouldn't do, and the one thing that he was notorious for the entire time, is when people asked him his view of God, whether he believed in like a historically God-man Jesus, he would not answer. I mean, he would do the politician, shuffle on these questions. And so this is where I thought John Rich, I thought he really got him down. But when you relook at it, you kind of come away with like, I'm not actually entirely
Slipped out.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
he did
just
slip out, but I think that was the closest we got to him, and sort of that like one moment in the video where he says, "I already did that." You have to like sort of you have to think, well, was he affirming what John Rich just said, or what he goes on to explain he meant, right? And so that's where we're still in the gray with Jordan Peterson. No matter what we do, we just can't get a straight answer out of him. But going back to what you said, actually, I really really like what you said there. With Jesus, I mean, he did preach hell very often, one of the most often. But it's not just that he preached hell. I mean, when you think about it, he didn't just say like you are destined to eternal damnation if you reject me. I mean, he describes it, outer darkness, the place where there is just gnashing of teeth, the place where you go to die and the worm is never satiated. It is the Gehenna, it is the pit, it is the lake of fire. It is, in one of his parables, the place at which you wish you hadn't drop from the bum that was at your doorstep. I mean, you would lick the drop off of his toe if you could, because you're just thirsting for water so desperately. I mean, we have these vivid images of hell and what it's like, and this is what he's teaching. I mean, he's using this as a mode to bring people to him. And so I do think as Christians, we need to sort of maybe take a different view of how hell should interplay in our dialogue with unbelievers. And one of the things that you brought up as well is sort of that aspect of like, grace isn't gracious unless it sort of like saves you from saying, I mean, you can't be saved if you're not saved from something. And what that kind of brought to mind was, Ray Comfort in his Way of the Master, which is just a evangelism tool to kind of have these cold conversations and have a gospel moment. He developed a formula. And one of the things that he says in his Way of the Master type school, I guess we can call it, is that you cannot give the gospel until they've understood that they are condemned in their sin. And that is to like give pearls to the swine. Why would they accept the gospel that saves them from condemnation if they don't accept that they are condemned? And so you need to get them through the understanding that they have not lived the perfect life, that they are condemned according to justice at a universal level. And it's only when they understand that they have done wrong and that there's nothing that they can do that the gospel really is something that is a gracious gift that they can accept now. And so Ray Comfort is someone that says, you can't really give them that gospel until you have this first step. Well, we could even say you can't really give people heaven until they've understood that they're coming out of hell, right? So that's just a really good kind of conversation, I think, that just was pulled out of that video that I think was really substantive. And I'm glad that we were able to have that conversation and even have it with you guys on the podcast. Let us know if you want to have a more discussion on this or anything, but that's just something that kind of came up naturally from the conversation. All right, this final clip, and this is making the round in the news. I'll go ahead and just play it.
Ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. For freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. Right. again, we're not going to be gaslighted on this. We remember Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Alrighty. Now, what you guys might not have been able to hear from that, because it's not super clear, it's someone off in the audience off to the side. This is a Kamala campaign rally, and she's giving this spiel, right? But at the end there, what is being yelled out by someone in the audience is, Jesus is king. So it's either Jesus or king or Christ is king. And her response to that person is, oh, you're at the wrong rally. Right? David, I'm going to give you the first react because I have some stuff to say to this.
They are at the wrong rally. But no, I'm just playing. Alrighty. Wow. Let me tell you, and not to even make it political, but even well, the fact that we live in a country where the evangelical vote is a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, how do I win the vote of professing Christians, people who claim the name of Christian? I'm not a campaign strategist, but that's not the way to win it over. That's for sure. And not even, I know there have been clips as well of J.D. Vance. Similar thing was said. And he kind of said, well, yeah, Jesus is king. Jesus is Lord. And now I'm also on the end of, well, how do I know that he believes that? Like, right. He might have been like, oh, you know what? Kamala didn't say it, and I'm going to say it. Like, you know what I mean? Not that he believes it on the heart level. It does speak volumes, the fact that he would even say it, and the fact that Kamala, whether either one, I don't know if J.D. Vance truly believes that. But I do know, based off this interview rally, that Kamala truly does not. Right. That's what I do know.
And that's what I wanted to pull out. I mean, if you have more, go ahead. It's just I wanted to really get this because I'm glad you said this. Kamala has said that she is a practicing Catholic. Same thing that Joe Biden claims. But yet, when someone at her rally says Jesus is king, she rebukes him. She says, you're at the wrong rally. This is someone who says that she's a Catholic. And so that's what I found so ironic about this. Because, we know that Kamala has been lying. She puts on different faces at different places and all this other stuff. And that's just normal for politics. But what was just real funny is, she really has claimed to be a practicing Catholic recently. As in, I'm pretty sure it was either last week or the week before. And yet this came up in the moment to say, she could have even blown it off as like, oh, what did he say? Oh, Christ is king. Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Right. She could have just done that. And that would have been fine. That would have been like maybe a nothing burger, or maybe people would have come out and said like, I really wish she said something, but she would have been okay with those people on her side that proclaim to have a faith and yet are democratic. But she has completely ostracized people of faith completely. What she thinks is she does not need your vote and you are not on her side. So she has completely, as I said, ostracized that side of her demographic who are, I guess, apparently at the rally. It is crazy, as you said, like they are at the wrong rally. It is crazy to think that someone who will proclaim Jesus as king is actually at the Democratic rally. But yet, even those that are at the Democratic rally and do have faith and then proclaim Jesus as king are pushed out of the rally and said, hey, actually, you're at the wrong one. You're not welcome here. We don't allow faith here. And so just let this remind you when you go to vote. As a Christian, you need to vote according to your faith as a Christian. Kamala does not stand for you. This video was about abortion. Someone made a faith statement and she rebuked the faith statement. You can say that there's a connection to the abortion, but honestly, the comment itself is not tied inherently to the abortion. It really is just random. And so she really has just condemned those who have faith. So this is a huge thing when it comes to the campaign, and I think it's just one of the many blunders that she's been doing lately. And I think this is a huge one because she has now cut out another part of those people that would have voted for her. So I thought that was really interesting. And then, as you said, J.D. Vance, he's trying to capitalize on it. You know, whether Trump or J.D. Vance really are Christians, we don't know, but Kamala definitely is not, and she's made that clear. So that was a really interesting thing, and that happened very recently. So, you know, sort of breaking news that's coming out. And yeah, so there's quite a lot that has come out recently. All of this stuff within the last week or so. And there's a lot of development here in our culture and a few different perspectives as well with with someone who is following and is burning bright for the Lord, someone who we don't know where he stands. We're kind of skeptical whether he's even in the Lord, and someone who definitely isn't in the Lord and rejects him completely. That's the state of our culture right now, folks. And I just hope that you have been encouraged by this. I hope that the conversations that were had through this were really helpful. I mean, we got to look at 3 different people, see what's going on in the culture, and then even have a conversation on salvation and whether it's legitimate to really think, be motivated by hell to come to Christ. Fantastic conversations, and we're just really happy to have these conversations with you. And with all that being said, we will see you in the next episode. See ya.